It's 8:13 in Vancouver. We're back in our studio. I'm Denis Manzar. Joining me is my colleague Alexandra Gerson, as well as our guest today, public figure and entrepreneur Denis Yelisevich. Sasha, hello, good morning. Dennis, good afternoon to you. Hello, we're glad to see you, glad to hear you. Yes, and we're very glad that you joined us.
Hi, Dennis. Good afternoon. It's already afternoon in Florida, and our day is just beginning. Well, it's not exactly a tradition, but let's put it this way. Let's start, Dennis. Let's begin with something that's the most relevant, serious, and important today. And I'll just add what I want to keep quiet about right now. Yes, Dennis.
Yes, well, if we start, so to speak, right off the bat, which actually would probably be the right thing to do, as they say, without beating around the bush. Undoubtedly, this is what's happening today, probably mostly in Ukraine's domestic politics. This is the resignation or dismissal of Mr. Yermak. Here, by the way, is an interesting point. When Yermak submitted his resignation letter, for example, in Medusa. Yes, when I read this information, it was actually during the live broadcast, during the live show. So in the header, there was a headline that said, Yermak resigns. Literally, maybe 15 minutes passed and the headline changed. Zelensky fired Yermak. Yeah, the meaning is the same. Yermak submitted his resignation, so Zelensky accepted it, meaning he fired him, right? Why not? So, Dennis, that's exactly where I'd like to start. Still, was this decision really Zelensky's, or was it truly Yermak's decision? Many people are arguing about this right now. So what was it really? And how hard was it for Zelensky to make this decision? Or on the contrary, did he, so to speak, breathe a sigh of relief? What do you know about this? What are people in Ukraine saying about it?
So Yermak was dismissed, and I don't agree with you here. There's a big difference between a person resigning on their own and being dismissed. In this case, especially because, all right, we'll talk about that a bit later. So Yermak was dismissed under pressure from the United States, which has been going on for a very long time. The National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine also added to the pressure. According to my information, they searched his place within a week, maybe two, and he is supposed to be served with charges, so it's all very serious. They parted on very bad terms with mutual insults and accusations, and even some media are reporting that someone shed a tear and so on and so forth. Well, what followed? In the English-speaking segment of X, this was followed by a certain narrative followed, like, look, in Ukraine, top-level corruption leads to a criminal case and resignation, but in Russia, it's considered normal and no problem. Someone from a Western audience who isn't prepared might just think, well, Ukraine has democracy. In reality, it's not like that at all. The United States demanded his resignation. He would never have resigned on his own. Yermak, he controlled absolutely all of Ukraine. So this is the key point. This narrative is being used to mislead people about a so-called democracy that doesn't actually exist there. Unfortunately.
Yes, regarding, let's say, the difficult breakup. I read about that too. That's what they say. There was a whole, basically, hysteria about Andrei Yermak, his statement that he would go to the front. By the way, how would you comment on his statement about possibly going to the front?
If he had any conscience at all, how much of a scoundrel must he be? We all know he won't actually fight. He'll just be listed there to avoid suspicion from the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine, which I mentioned to you. He's under crazy protection. This is someone who still talks about himself there. If you look into it, he wrote a message to the New York Post. I am a decent person. I'm an honest person. This is absurd. I'm heading to the front. You understand? Maybe the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine will serve him a notice of suspicion, but he won't escape American sanctions eventually. So Yermak will be that victim of the regime who will definitely be sacrificed.
I have a question. Sorry, Dennis. So if it weren't for, as you say, Dennis, the American pressure, if there wasn't that pressure, does that mean that Zelensky would never get rid of Yermak because Yermak is Zelensky's man?
He's not only Zelensky's ally, they're like Siamese twins, with Zelensky giving Yermak full control over Ukraine's domestic policy. I mean, you can't even imagine how far it's gone. Ukraine has faced many challenges, but democracy was never fully crushed until now. Yermak is appointing people everywhere. People even joke that in Kyiv, there's no building where he hasn't made the old lady a doorkeeper or concierge. In other words, he controlled absolutely everything. And now, it was such a huge house of cards, he controlled the security forces. The key point is they created real terror in Ukraine. And now this house of cards is collapsing at an unprecedented speed. Now Zelensky will inherit everything Yermak created as if it's his responsibility, even though he believes he's taking all the negativity. Look, I got rid of Yermak. See, that's it, I'm clean. We'll do things differently now. We'll know Zelensky's conclusions by who he appoints after Yermak.
Why were Americans dissatisfied with Yermak?
They knew he was a completely corrupt individual. Yermak has family ties to the main intelligence directorate of Russia. They knew, well, you could just stop after the word corruption. They knew about the top-level corruption and Yermak's role in the repressions. And in America, there's something called the Magnitsky List, where, according to my information, in 2026, Ukrainian high-ranking officials, judges, and so on could end up. All those who were involved in human rights violations.
Thank you. By the way, actually, of course, we're not really deeply involved in Ukrainian politics. So let's put it this way. It seems like Yermak is actually, well, let's say, not just the second most important person, but almost the first person in Ukraine, really. Yeah, like a sort of gray eminence, as they call them, who basically makes all the decisions. And almost all of Ukraine's policies, both domestic and foreign, depended on him. How much do you agree with this opinion?
Well, in what sense did the foreign policy depend on him? He was the one who quietly advised Zelensky. In Ukraine, you could basically say Yermak was the president. But people who don't know need to be told that there is no position of vice president in Ukraine, like there is in the United States, for example. And basically, the vice president in the United States is chosen by the people, the voters, because their names are listed together during the election campaign. But here, no one elected Yermak. He was personally appointed by Zelensky, who gave him such powers. Let's just put it that way for a moment. Yermak was given access to state secrets, even though the constitution and law did not allow it. How is that possible? But in Ukraine, it is. And that's why I say it's important who Zelensky appoints next, meaning if he understood anything, he should appoint the head of the office there. A manager who won't stand out too much and won't be involved in exerting influence, just as it's supposed to be. If, as I suspect, he appoints a security official, such as Gudanov, head of the main intelligence directorate of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, or Pales, a military man, I think he should pick a strong leader. Because just picking some ordinary manager, Zelensky can't govern Ukraine democratically like Netanyahu governs Israel in wartime. He can only rule through force and dictatorship. But I'm telling you all this through the lens of Ukraine, Ukraine's interests and democracy in Ukraine. I don't have much personal against Zelensky, though my family and I have suffered from his repressions.
Yes, Dennis, here's another question about Yermak. Again, let me say once more, of course, we don't know everything by far. I just opened his biography, just looked it up on Wikipedia. Honestly, I don't see many similarities with Volodymyr Zelensky, right? I mean, for example, with Mindyich, it's clear they work together in show business. So it seems like there's much more that connects them, right? But what could connect them with Yermak? Well, aside from, let's say, meeting through Zelensky's political activities when he became president, because as I understand it, Yermak was appointed as the assistant to the president of Ukraine in 2019 at the beginning. Maybe you know something more about where this acquaintance comes from. Not even friendship, but such admiration for Andrei Yermak. And the assignment of such truly significant powers to, it would seem, a person who, yes, heads the president's office, but still...
As far as I know, they met a long time ago. Zelensky was the general producer of Ukraine's largest television channel, Inter, and Yermak was some kind of lawyer there. And as far as I know, that's where they met. After that, Yermak acted in such a way that, well, I have every reason to believe, and I'm not the only one, that he is an agent of influence for the Russian Federation. I won't say for the Federal Security Service or the main intelligence directorate, but definitely an agent of influence for the Russian Federation. If you watch the famous debates between Zelensky and Poroshenko at the stadium before the last elections, you'll see Yermak there. He's there, quietly standing. He doesn't say anything at all, just watches from the sidelines. He watches and watches. And when the opportunity arose, let's say, for this vacancy, this position of head of the president's office after Andrei Bowden was dismissed, Yermak stepped in. And look at what happened next. When Zelensky knew that Putin was preparing an attack, and that was in October of 2021, there were maps showing where everything would happen. Yermak said, this is nonsense, nothing will happen. Let's build infrastructure facilities, let's build roads that Russian tanks would later use. Let's do all of this. So basically, each of his... then we had the surrender of Chingara. You probably heard of such territories there in the Kherson region. So territories were surrendered. We lost territories precisely because of traitors surrendering them in the first days of the war. That's what happened. Putin didn't just take everything. It was surrendered by traitors.
Yes, Kherson surrendered all regions without resistance.
Of course, Yermak ordered demining there before the war. So that's how it is. And then there was the famous story at the beginning of the war, in the first days of the war, when the military was waiting for an order from the president's office to blow up the bridge. I think it was near Irpin, close to Kyiv. They never got the order. And the military, without waiting, blew up the bridge themselves, which basically stopped the huge Russian column there, so it couldn't break through to Kyiv. Here's what happened. It's public info, yet everyone stays silent. Anyway, let's continue. Oval Office 1-0. When Zelensky fell out with Trump, he acted very rudely. Yermak advised him to go to the White House at that time. Do you understand? So if you add it all up, Yermak gave him, all the lousy advice, first and foremost, for Ukraine. He was surrendering Ukraine's positions. A day before Yermak's dismissal, an article comes out in The Atlantic. Yermak is going on and on there. Ukraine will not give up an inch of territory. Compromise is impossible. In other words, he's basically disrupting the peace talks. Just like that?
I have some questions that might seem trivial to you. Dennis, for you, but still, you said, Dennis, that the Americans were not satisfied with a character like Yermak because of corruption, because do Americans really care that much about Ukraine's internal politics?
No, well, it's about American money, about corruption during the war, when America is providing enormous aid. Well, the most important thing is the issue of American money. Next, it's a matter of negotiations. They saw that Yermak was conducting negotiations in a way that would not lead to success, possibly distorting Zelensky's information. You see, this pressure actually started quite a while ago, and Zelensky covered it up until the very end. When Zelensky was reportedly given a condition, likely remove him now, or we'll remove you both soon, I suspect that was the ultimatum. He had no choice. I also predicted this. My viewers found the video. In 2024, I said someone would eventually throw another under the bus, because what happened in Ukraine was unthinkable and could only end this way.
Tell me, please, how much could Yermak's dismissal or departure from politics affect the outcome of the end of the war between Ukraine and Russia, or would it not affect it at all?
Yeah, Yermak's dismissal has a very positive impact on Ukraine, its current affairs, and overall fate. As soon as Yermak was dismissed, news began arriving today. Our well-known intelligence officer behind the Wagner-Gate operation suddenly had his restriction changed from 24-hour to nighttime house arrest. The National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine detective Magomed Rasulov, a high-profile case, was moved from detention to house arrest. This all happened instantly. You don't need to be very smart to see Yermak ordered it. Oh, and something important that I forgot to tell you. The summer protests in Kyiv occurred when they attempted to shift the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine's powers to the Yermak-controlled Prosecutor General's office. It was Yermak who organized all of this. The National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine lost powers because he was compromised and they had evidence of his corruption. Do you understand? And the Americans are aware of it too. What caused the delay? It was because President Trump froze, Maybe I'm not explaining it well. There was an information exchange between Ukraine's National Anti-Corruption Bureau and an FBI representative. The FBI official who oversees the Ukrainian bureau wasn't appointed at first. Once appointed, he received the exchange and things progressed quickly. This happened in the fall.
Tell me, please, Dennis, has the meeting with Witkoff and Kushner already started in Moscow, or is it still ahead by the time it was supposed to start in Moscow at 4 o'clock? I think it started, yes or no?
I think it has started.
Either it has started or it's about to start soon.
Oh, yes. Tell me, please, what do you think might happen today? Every day there's news, every hour there's news. Well, first of all, here's what I want to say. Today it's already been 3 weeks since Hennadiy Balashov passed away. So Hennadiy left on November 11th, and today is December 2nd. That means, am I right? That's 19 days, exactly 3 weeks. Hennadiy didn't live to see the changes he dreamed of and wanted so much, just days, just hours away. What do you think, Dennis? If Hennadiy Balashov could see all this today, is this what he was waiting for, these kinds of changes, or was he hoping for something else?
Well, at the very least, he would definitely understand that this is the beginning of change and, in particular, an improvement in his situation. Because it's clear that there was a political order against him. You know, people, my subscribers, write to me saying that when Gennady passed away, it was such a loss for us, like losing a family member. We can't get over it. We can't pull ourselves together. We can't believe that he won't be making videos anymore. So, yes, it's very hard for many people.
And I keep thinking about it all the time. I know that the person didn't wait just a little bit longer. I feel like their belief that it was possible, well, he didn't have any hope left for any positive changes for Ukraine, so to speak. Well, I don't know, at least that's how it seems to me. And I feel really sad that he didn't wait, because maybe these changes could lead to the war between Ukraine and Russia being stopped. I don't know, maybe I'm just seeing what I want, Dennis, right?
No, you know, in one of our last conversations, he was very pessimistic. He literally told me they are not going to give up power. I have a feeling that Yermak is there forever, you see, like forever. 2 weeks later, it turned out it wasn't forever. I told him this, saying it doesn't work that way. But he was already so desperate and in such a bad mood because of this injustice that affected him personally.
Yes, there's a saying, Dennis, a person lives as long as they are remembered. Balashov is from that rare category of people who are not forgotten, who don't leave, who are not forgotten from either the mind or the heart. Really, and so to speak, as long as they are remembered. Of course, this is no consolation for his family, for his loved ones and relatives, but nevertheless, I was definitely lucky. And so were others. For you, for me, to meet a person once who makes you think about him, to keep coming back in your thoughts to Gennady Nikolaevich. And of course, it's very upsetting. Well, it's such an emotional moment, and I can't help but mention it. Because when we start talking about Ukraine, especially with you, since you knew each other and communicated, and for me even more so, I mentally go back to Hennadiy. And once again, I want to say that this is a loss for Ukraine, for Ukrainian society, because in my opinion, Hennadiy Balashov is truly a real patriot of Ukraine. That's how I see it.
Absolutely, that's right.
And I want to remind our radio listeners once again that we are joined by public figure and entrepreneur Denis Yelisevich. The phone number for our live studio is 778-716-7067, 778-716-7067. Dennis, once again, I'll briefly return to the topic of the head of the president's office. First of all, are there any deadlines for the new appointment, and how would you comment on the rumors about the possible return of Valery Zaluzhny, who was also mentioned among the candidates for the position of head of the president's office? And I think yesterday his photo was published somewhere, I don't remember, on some social network, maybe Facebook or Instagram, where he captioned it, "It's better at home." Many people immediately started saying that this was kind of a message that Valery Zaluzhny would soon return to Ukraine.
Yes, that happened, and there are such rumors going around, and different information is coming in. It's even mentioned somewhere that he might become the head of the office instead of Yermak. But only if that happens. There are two options. The first is that he joins Zelensky's team and will continue to support Zelensky in politics. That's what Zelensky basically dreams of, to stay in politics. The second option is some kind of agreed upon figure, a transitional one for this period. I don't know how it will be. I saw a photo of Zaluzhny. I saw Zaluzhny's article in the Telegraph. It's a terrible article. Why? Because he's talking there about some kind of nuclear weapons for Ukraine, about membership in...
As security guarantees. By the way, I also wanted to talk about that.
Yes, at least the word reforms is mentioned once, thank God. That's real progress for our politicians. But at the end, he says, I see the path of Ukraine's development through international aid for reconstruction. Economic development. That is, he doesn't even allow the thought that the economy can be generated within Ukraine by added value. So it's modern in a way. That's how he sees Ukraine. First, I'm convinced he didn't write it himself. Ukraine, for the globalists whom Zaluzhny obviously works for, is just something undefined. We'll give them money and they'll do what we say. I can't accept that. Why is he writing about nuclear weapons Ukraine will never have? Honestly, if Zelensky got nuclear weapons, he'd blackmail all of Europe. Give me money and weapons. I'll keep fighting here forever. Second, NATO won't take us. I'm a big supporter of NATO. They won't take us there. I'm glad several Republican senators quickly responded, saying the article is good, but NATO won't accept you and you'll never have nuclear weapons. Why say that out loud? And here we come to the point that in reality, Zaluzhny is telling some kind of myths. He lives in an unreal world. He's afraid, or his political strategists are, or his, I don't know. There are handlers there. They don't want to. Just like all real politicians, whom I consider parasites. They don't want to talk about real things. They want to tell the people some sweet things that have absolutely nothing to do with reality. And they don't like me precisely because I talk about real things, about what actually works and how things really are. Zaluzhny still has a strong chance. His rating remains extremely high. People view him as someone convenient to shift responsibility onto, and I'm convinced that post-war Ukraine needs a reformer. But what kind of rhetoric does Zaluzhny have anyway? Yes, maybe right now it's worth signing some kind of peace agreement. Well, that's just a pause during the war. The war will continue anyway. That's the root of evil and the mistake. You can't program Ukraine like that. And if you set yourself up this way, that's exactly what will happen.
Well, that's actually the most painful question. Because I just remember when Zelensky not so long ago, addressed the Ukrainians, it seemed to me that in his address there was some kind of, well, not exactly a secret preparation for surrender, but that he would accept all the conditions of this peace plan. Yeah, but honestly, there was a kind of hopelessness after all. That's how it seemed to me. But now apparently the main question is coming up again. As I understand it, there are two main ones. I mean, if we look at it from Ukraine's side, first is the security guarantee, which we just started discussing. And Valery Zaluzhny actually proposed as a guarantee the deployment of nuclear weapons. Yes, NATO nuclear weapons. Well, that's really, kind of pointless. If the country isn't being accepted into NATO, then who would place nuclear weapons there? He was told about that. And the second thing is, of course, the territories regarding Donbas, that Ukraine will never give them up. Accordingly, this is also a matter of principle for Putin. And he has repeatedly said this and continues to say that if it can't be done peacefully, we will do it by military means. Again, yes, the question is, well, where can you find some kind of golden mean here? In my opinion, you can't. How do you see these contradictions?
Obviously, Ukraine will have to make an unpleasant compromise. It's unpleasant for me as well. Territorial exchanges have occurred often in world history. So saying that there are any red lines for us at all is simply wrong. We, Ukraine, have only one red line, the continuation of the war. This will undoubtedly lead to a catastrophe. So somehow it will probably be described in a legally elegant way in this peace plan. Perhaps there will be some decision there that hasn't been announced yet. I think today will be the most important meeting between Kushner and Witkoff with Putin. I think this point is number one on the agenda right now. Although, as I already told you, I don't see the territorial issue as something we should be fixated on. If you give Yermak any territories, he'll corrupt them and everything else.
And about the meeting, Dennis, I have a question for you. Ask Dennis if, in his opinion, Russia can accept the compromise proposed by the American side.
But I don't know what is meant. What compromise is the American side proposing?
I don't know any either so far. As far as
There isn't one.
how realistic is the United States peace plan, considering the positions of Moscow and Kyiv?
It's very realistic, very realistic. I'm in favor of getting the most advantageous terms possible, but I emphasize without any red lines. Ukraine is closer to peace than ever, and we must seize this chance for the country's future. Continued fighting only brings more consequences. 500,000 people are going absent without leave. There's a 60 billion euro hole in the budget. What are we even talking about? I absolutely despise the position when someone who isn't on the front line shouts, "Look, we can't stop. That's a bad peace plan, this and that." Or the second group who say they should give us everything and we should fight. Honestly, I don't understand any of it.
Well, even Vladimir Putin is openly saying now that Ukraine's main problem today is people who simply aren't there. He does it in such a cynical way, saying that Russia can always, so to speak, make up for its losses, but Ukraine can't. Well, in fact, it's true, right? Russia is bigger, obviously. The population is larger. But I wanted to ask about something a little different. Again, coming back to this so-called peace plan, and by the way, you already mentioned it too, about Zelensky. Well, that's your opinion, just thinking out loud. Zelensky was offered to fire Yermak after all, otherwise both of them would have to go. So there is still some force, let's hypothetically call it the Americans, that decides everything in this situation, that can dictate its will and put pressure. So in your opinion, why hasn't it been possible yet to put pressure on Zelensky in this way, so to speak, so that he would finally agree to this territorial exchange, which, by the way, Trump talked about, if I'm not mistaken, even back in Anchorage, right?
Yes, it was discussed there. This is exactly the mechanism of so-called pressure. America had a point about removing Zelensky. Why was it moved somewhere to the end? Because if you remove the president now, then these situations arise when you urgently need your own puppet who will follow orders, but such a person doesn't exist. So the decision was made. We'll work with Zelensky as he is until the end. And we are trying to achieve results until the end. We are stripping away his power layer by layer. We are not removing him all at once. We are stripping away his power layer by layer. And you see, it has already reached such deep layers. Up to Yermak. It was all planned in advance. And when the Americans finally understood who they were dealing with, this plan was put into action. They're proceeding step by step. If you refuse, they move on. That's how they reached Yermak. And Yermak, I want to tell you once again, the National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine hasn't finished. The National Anti-Corruption Bureau of Ukraine has only just begun.
One more thing I wanted to mention again, just as a thought, out loud, regarding what's happening today. This is, if we're talking now, for example, about whether it will actually be possible to reach this peace, this peace agreement, right? After all, once again, Vladimir Putin, he says that it's necessary to hold presidential elections within, I think, 100 days from the moment this agreement is signed. Many, let's say, patriots, yes, Russian ones, or, well, the patriots, as they are called, say that this is exactly the main goal of Vladimir Putin. It's a change of power. And if hypothetically Zelensky and his team hadn't been in power at the very beginning, maybe there wouldn't have been a war, right? So here, perhaps the most important point is that who will become the president of Ukraine? It's clear that Russia will do everything possible and impossible, probably to make sure that, let's say, a pro-Russian person becomes president. And I remember we discussed this more than once with Hennadiy Viktorovich on our broadcasts. He was sure that it was impossible, that a pro-Russian president would never come to Ukraine. He said, no, this will never happen. It's impossible. What do you think, really? Well, it's clear that Russia will make these efforts, but how possible do you think it is?
We need to clarify what pro-Russian actually means. So if you mean pro-Russian in the literal sense, that's impossible. There's not even a 1% chance of that result. It's simply impossible.
Take Medvedchuk as an example. Here's another Medvedchuk.
No, such a figure is doomed and it doesn't exist. Another thing is that we need a president who will really understand the situation, that Putin is who he is. Russia isn't going anywhere. If we keep escalating the militarism, it won't end well for us. We're not in a position to fight a country like that. And really, why fight at all? We need to take everyone's interests into account, make it as painless as possible, and then focus on the economy, on reforms, on the future of Ukraine. A person like that isn't just capable of winning. Only someone like that can win, I'll tell you that. The winner won't be the person we're discussing today, or the one people or ratings mention. That means no Tymoshenko, Poroshenko, or Zaluzhny. Budanov isn't meant for this either. There's already a version with Tymoshenko being pushed, and one of our political technologists is commenting on it. 4 deputies from Servant of the People need to leave the coalition in the Verkhovna Rada. And then Tymoshenko can be made president as the only visible figure who suits Putin. And then the so-called Georgian scenario will be implemented in Ukraine.
Yes, people mention this often.
Yes.
Specifically about the Georgian version.
Dennis, when I asked you what Yermak's resignation means, yes, someone just wrote to us. Yermak was removed to show Trump's ability to influence Ukrainian politics. They showed it. Right now, representatives from the United States, China, and Russia are meeting to discuss the next steps. Anchorage 2 is in Moscow right now. Do you agree with this point of view?
No, Anchorage 2 definitely disagrees.
And a little about something else. Ask Denis, how do you assess, Denis, Putin's statement that Russia is ready to go to war with Europe right now? Is this a real threat or political pressure?
This is political pressure, typical of Putin and the State Security Committee. Apparently, they were once seriously offended by them. And now, having gained strength, Putin shows off his toughness and rattles his weapons. I'm not surprised. I heard it today and expected it.
Do you think Europe is taking this threat seriously?
Yes, they're taking it seriously and have started preparing as much as they can for a war that they are definitely not ready for. Putin won't start a war. Rest assured, there will be no war in Europe. It's impossible. A ground invasion is not even being considered. Putin won't succeed.
What do you think, Denis? Why is Moscow trying to exclude Europe from the negotiations and singling out the United States as its only partner?
Because Europe, I won't defend Putin right now. Europe is acting very strangely. These Ursulas, Kaja Kallas, these unrealistic statements. I mean, we must admit that current European leaders view Ukraine as a means to weaken Russia long term. So that's the concept. You know, this concept doesn't suit me personally either. I see a different future for Ukraine. That's why Putin is trying to exclude Europe, because they are war hawks. Let's just say it plainly, war hawks.
Can Russia cut Ukraine off from the sea if Kiev continues piracy against Russian ships?
Well, I heard this statement from Putin. I think something like that is possible.
Thank you.
Thank you, Denis. I wanted to briefly return to the topic of the president of Ukraine again, because, again, many people believe that this is the stumbling block. And I've heard repeatedly, and even now I see in our chat, the name Yevgeny Murayev comes up. By the way, he was once on our broadcast, actually a long time ago, even before the war. He gave his comments on certain issues. So how do you see or feel about Yevgeny Murayev? Well, how much do you think that he really could, at least in the future, be some kind of candidate for the position or office of President of Ukraine?
No way. I can't see what's being written in the chat right now. Yevgeny Murayev is investing a lot of resources in media trying to move forward. Yevgeny Murayev is my complete opponent. He is entirely anti-Western. He had this label that you called pro-Russian today.
Yes. That's why I called him that. Yes.
Yes, purely pro-Russian. When the war began, he vanished from the media for 3 years, staying completely silent as if nothing was happening. By the way, my information says he lives in the beautiful Western country, Austria. So, yeah, when he's on television screens, he's a big anti-Western guy. But when it comes to living with his own family, somehow Vienna turned out to be a good place. He has no chance, you see. Yevgeny Murayev is a pure Soviet type. Yevgeny Murayev stands for the same things as all those so-called pro-Russian people. They stand for state capitalism, like the one Putin built in Russia. So they want to come to power, concentrate those very 3,500 enterprises I told you about last time, and manage them the way the Kremlin does. That's it. They don't need reforms or capitalism, just state capitalism, which I see as fascism, that's all. Let those entrepreneurs take care of the small stuff. They want to control major state assets in Ukraine, which do exist.
Yes, I mentioned that name intentionally, mainly because, as I said, he was once on our show, and many people really do call him pro-Russian from the point of view that it would probably be much easier to come to an agreement with him, and he is more not exactly for integration, but for closer ties with Russia in this regard. Of course, I don't see anything wrong with that either. If these are good neighborly relations, which we don't have right now, and I don't know when they will appear if they ever do, and something else. Well, once again, we've figured out what a pro-Russian president is. And a person who, well, let's say, perceives Putin's policy as it is and skillfully adapts to it. Do you see such a candidate on the horizon?
Such candidates, I won't name any names right now. There are such candidates. And it's definitely not the ones we're discussing now last time or those mentioned in the chat. Believe me, none of these candidates have a chance.
These are the ones just mentioned. And as for those you're talking about but not mentioning their last names, I completely agree with you. Tell me, do they have a chance? After all, because, well, if, let's say, peace is signed, and I think that these presidential elections must happen sooner or later anyway, one way or another, in any case, most likely, for some reason, it seems to me that this will happen in the near future. For those candidates you're thinking about, first of all, how easy will it be for them? And secondly, do they have any chances?
Yes, they don't just have chances. I'm convinced that such a candidate will win, and there will be more than one such candidate. And Ukrainian politics will inevitably be in a different situation. Everything changes. This political mothball is facing its final fiasco, and politics will change completely. The country is tired of it. That's also part of why we couldn't avoid this war. This will end with the upcoming presidential elections.
Denis, how do you interpret Zelensky's statement that we are closer to peace than ever before? Zelensky said this before the parliament in Ireland. Is this a real signal, a genuine signal, or an attempt to create a political backdrop before important negotiations?
It's all of the above, but here Zelensky was honest. You see, it's a rare case when I agree with him, our opinions coincide.
But if Zelensky says, yes, Denis, we are closer to peace, does it mean that Ukraine is ready to give up territories and he just hasn't said it out loud yet?
He just hasn't said it out loud, of course. He just hasn't said it out loud. And let's not forget, in these negotiations, we're talking as if it's only about Ukraine, but they're also talking about personal security guarantees. A formula that suits him may be reached there. Personally, this will satisfy everyone. Zelensky won't come out and say, dear Ukrainians, there will be a territorial exchange. Sorry, it didn't work out any other way. It will be presented as some kind of, as we say, a victory. There, Zelensky is demanding from the European Union, give us clear deadlines for when you will accept us into the European Union. For example, I say Ukraine shouldn't join the European Union. Zelensky wants it not for Ukraine or its success, but for the elections.
Tell me, please, Dennis, the fact that Trump is sending his person to the Kremlin, is this a step towards peace? Or is it an attempt by the United States to solve the Ukrainian issue behind Kyiv's back?
No, this isn't the first time. It's a normal negotiation process. Witkoff has already come, and now Kushner has arrived. Everyone is aware. Everyone understands. Right before our broadcast, I read that after this meeting in the Kremlin, Witkoff and Kushner will meet with Zelensky in one of the European countries.
And could it be that, well, let's suppose, yes, Zelensky is ready for peace. But is it more beneficial for Washington to drag the war out a bit longer, or is that just someone's imagination?
No, I understand that perspective. Well, look at how everything is happening. If it was beneficial for Washington under Biden, that's why we saw limited aid. Just enough to avoid losing, but not enough to win, and the continued escalation of the war. But now everything is completely different. Peace could have still been achieved this spring, in May. There was a chance in the summer, but in May there was a real chance. Everyone refused. Today we have worse conditions, but we are close to peace on these terms.
By the way, you mentioned Biden. I don't know if you've heard or not, but the Director of National Intelligence, she told Americans that this week, additional documents will be presented to the American people exposing Obama and his leading role in the Russiagate hoax.
Yes.
In my opinion, this is actually a very serious moment if it really happens. And another question for you. Ask Dennis if it looks like Putin is threatening Europe to show Trump his strength and negotiating position. If you don't want us to go further, let's make a deal the American way.
Well, of course, that's part of it. This is typical State Security Committee behavior, Putin's way, to intimidate once he has the resources and has judged everyone's worth. This war could have been avoided with a stronger United States president or different actions from Europe. Europe has just turned into some kind of completely communist organization. It's not ready for anything, for any real challenges. And Putin fully took advantage of that.
Thank you. And about what I asked regarding Obama, yes. About whether what will be presented to the American people, yes, as was said today. What could this lead to, Dennis?
Well, many people there think that Obama could be put in prison. No, he has immunity, so that won't happen. However, some key people will be exposed with evidence. And this will help dispel many myths. It's all part of a big operation. This build-up, that's how they were building up Ukraine too. This leads to bad things. I mean, we're not saying that Putin is good, let's say you and I, or let me just speak for myself. I'm convinced that this was also artificially built up, but at the same time, I'm not saying that Putin is good. But this kind of behavior and this strategy won't lead to anything good. Let's be honest, they're autocrats and dictators. We should fight them, but not by expanding the military or using proxy countries. Europe needs to unite with the United States. This is crucial. Europe's mistake is currently taking an anti-United States position, but they held an exercise. NATO held an exercise in Romania recently, and they failed in 5 or 6 key areas there. They can't do without the United States, but such leaders will never support the values of, for example, President Trump. These people focus on their own interests. I repeat, Kaja Kallas, every statement she makes. I'm shocked that someone like that holds such a position in Europe. Europe is great, but its leaders are at rock bottom.
You're being asked, what do you think, Dennis? Why didn't Zelensky sign the peace agreement in 2022?
In 24th?
They're writing 22nd here for some reason.
Why didn't you sign in the 22nd? That's because of the kind of president he is. He probably got a taste of what it's like to be a great commander. They buzzed in his ear. I think Yermak did too. We've already discussed Boris Johnson with you. So they told him, we'll give you everything, go ahead, put pressure on Putin, and he believed it so much, he thought, I can do this, I'm just awesome. And this is what it led to. Right now, we're just discussing mistakes, radical, fundamental mistakes, for which he'll have to answer. The war should have been ended in May of 2022. We wouldn't be discussing troop withdrawal from Donbass or other issues today, as those conditions were never present. Putin would have quieted down since he was hit hard back then.
Dennis, your opinion, this question has been around for a while, about Arestovich and Mark Feigin.
My opinion?
Yes.
Well, you know, I'm a straightforward person. I'll speak directly. Mark Feigin is just a downright scoundrel with a very questionable background. Regarding Arestovich, I had a personal story with him, but I don't want to join in any harassment now. People just need to kind of forget about him as a political figure. There's no chance for that anymore. But he's successful in his own niche of psychology. He has some kind of school, all that stuff. That's what he's good at. I have no relationship with him at all.
By the way, was Hennadiy Balashov acquainted with Arestovich or not?
Yes, very closely. They worked together before anyone knew Arestovich. Hennadiy essentially launched his media career, bringing him into the mainstream. Hennadiy had a huge YouTube channel for that time. 11 years ago, he had 100,000 subscribers. That's incredible. And Arestovich used to come on live broadcasts and do his demagoguery there. And thanks to that, he also gained a lot of audience.
But what you just said, well, you really, I can't believe it. Dennis, 100,000 subscribers 11 years ago?
Back during Maidan, Hennadiy's videos got over 1 million views. That's hard to achieve now, but it happened then.
Does that mean that Balashov was probably one of the most prominent politicians in Ukraine? Popular, I mean.
Popular, definitely. He just didn't have, you see, back then, all politics was through television. Today, television in Ukraine is dead. Everything is on YouTube, basically on the internet, YouTube, Telegram, social networks. Back then, television accounted for 80% of the influence. Balashov was a pioneer. He gained an incredible number of followers at first on Facebook. He wrote text posts, then he moved to YouTube. You could say he was a pioneer in this. And he had a real audience, but still, well, back then there just wasn't that kind of audience on social media in general. Now it's mostly retirees there. People over 70 are on YouTube today, including in Ukraine. It's a very internet-savvy country. Let's put it this way. He was a bit ahead of his time.
Yes, you said it exactly right. He was a bit ahead of his time. By the way, there are comments on social media right now about the meeting that it's already started, by the way, Jared Kushner, Witkoff, and Putin. But, you know, everything I see here, what I asked you about today, before meeting the United States delegation, Putin discussed cutting Ukraine off from the sea and said Russia is ready for war with Europe. I've already asked about this, but today for some people it sounds very serious. For example, it kind of surprises me. Today you said it right. You talked about the attitude toward Putin, but so to speak, statements like that, I think, make him not as great as he thinks he is and as the Russian people think he is, right?
Not as great, you said?
Well, yes, because these statements, they just, I don't know, somehow, I don't know. Before the war with Ukraine, everyone insisted it would never occur. I know smart, well-known people who said this will never happen. Like, it will never happen. Russia will never attack Ukraine. It happened. Now, what we are watching and listening to, some people might say, well, it's complete nonsense, bluff, rubbish, but I don't know. Dennis.
Look, I don't want to throw words around right now. I'm not a soldier. I haven't been to the front. But objectively, Putin hasn't captured a single major city in Ukraine. He failed the ground operation. The war has lasted nearly 4 years. Which Europe are we referring to? This is NATO. These are Tomahawk missiles that can wipe out the entire Russian army. So it's just to rattle nerves, maybe launch some drones, maybe, but everything else just doesn't make sense. This is typical of his behavior. But I don't look at Putin, probably, through the lens of savoring what a scoundrel he is. Everyone knows, I've known for a long time who Putin is. I sensed all this intuitively before these conversations began. But we need to focus, as a citizen of Ukraine, I focus on something else. He's really close. He's still alive for now. And we need to adapt to this situation with minimal losses. And if Ukraine develops, if Europe, if we're talking more globally about Europe, if Europe changes its strategy of behavior, then Putin won't really bother them much. But as long as you take 50% in taxes, make people's lives absolutely unbearable, and hold countless conferences at the taxpayer's expense. If you can't shoot down a Putin drone over Denmark, that's a problem. Yet you also blame President Trump.
and also about the tankers hit by Ukraine in the Black Sea region. What do you know about this? What can you say about it?
This is a very negative episode. Both Kazakhstan and Erdogan, once a friend of Zelensky, reacted poorly. Nobody needs this. We're talking about big money, commerce, and security. And this is, in fact, a kind of escalation. And of course, everyone wants to stop this. But Erdogan holds significant influence here.
Well, regarding what I just asked you, Dennis, tell me, if the attacks on tankers continue, does it mean there will be some retaliatory measures against ships from countries helping Ukraine?
I don't want to speculate. If I discuss what might happen with further escalation, then we shouldn't be talking about a peace plan. So basically, it will be disrupted. By the way, this could be one of the ways it could be disrupted, but I wouldn't want to speculate about that. So there's a war going on. Let's put it this way. There was no ceasefire. None of that happened. There's a war going on. A peace plan, a peace agreement, not even a framework one hasn't been signed. Hostilities are ongoing. Putin will bomb Kyiv again. Just wait. Ukraine again, naturally.
Under Gorbachev and Yeltsin, Russia lost territories, but under Putin, it annexed them. Isn't that a significant achievement?
Is this a comment from the chat?
Yes.
Well, you see, I could answer this person very harshly right now, but what's the point of just stirring this up again between peoples? Here is a person living like, surely, in complete crap. He wants lands like Berdyansk or Kherson that he'll never visit. When would he go there? Never. But he really needs them to feel his own greatness. I can only tell you the same thing has just been annexed now in Ukraine. Everything is terrible and bad, but look at us. We've fought Russia for 4 years. We're fantastic. But honestly, at someone else's expense.
That perspective exists too, doesn't it? We're great, right?
Yeah, we annex for terrible greatness. God forbid someone somewhere says something even a little different from what we like. He immediately becomes a Kremlin agent, pro-Putin, and we don't want to know or hear from you.
But tell me, Denny, Russians say we are great. Ukrainians say we are great. And the war goes on, and in reality, there is no greatness neither on one side nor the other, because not a single person in the world has ever called war the greatest invention. It's a colossal tragedy. People are dying on both sides. Where is either country's greatness?
This is the horror of this post-Soviet mentality. I view this chain as a communist past. Someone deeply trusts the state, viewing it as salvation. I see this as a problem, while they see it as a solution. And accordingly, it's easy to hook such a person on propaganda. Both Putin and, let's say, Zelensky have succeeded in this. Ukrainian propaganda likely achieved in 3 years what took Putin 20 years.
Tell me, please, what about Hennadiy Balashov's party, the libertarian one, 5.10? Was it an alternative? What was it about it that could have made Ukrainian life, the lives of Ukrainians, better?
But Hennadiy had a strong economic program. And in principle, the views that freedom is the main thing, not collectivism, but individualism and so on and so forth. I think his program already included neutrality back then, by the way, but support was minimal. Ukrainian politics is driven by television, big money, and vast resources. Now, social networks can counter this, but they couldn't before.
You know, I just said when Ukrainians say we are great and Russians say we are great, and now people are writing to us saying that Russians don't say that. It's just that Russia has a huge, great history, literature, and so on. But doesn't Ukraine have a great history? Doesn't Ukraine have literature? That sounds, to put it mildly, strange. I don't know how you would answer to.
I acknowledge the greatness of Russian culture. It exists, it's studied all over the world. But I definitely don't want to give this to Putin. It's unrelated to him or his actions. Regarding Ukraine, we don't have such a culture. As for history, I consider Kievan Rus as the history of Ukraine. For example, I'm launching this topic, Make Ukraine Great Again. And many people say, when were we ever great? I say right here during Kievan Rus. But They boast about it. Well, let them boast. I'm saying that, yes, Russia has great literature, so let's also do something ourselves.
Putin wrote this, yes.
Yes.
I absolutely agree with you on this, Dennis. Really, Putin is trying, in my opinion, to privatize everything.
Yes?
In general, all the successes that exist are all thanks to him, literature, art, and so on and so on. But actually, hasn't he been there for 25 years? There haven't been any significant, let's say, breakthroughs, neither in the field of science nor anything like that. It's just swinging on the clouds of the past. And forgetting that Ukrainians, even when they were still part of the Soviet Union, also made a significant contribution to the development of Russia itself. If we're talking about that, what is there to say? Because everything was so intertwined, and now trying to pull something out, to pull out some threads and weave them differently, it all looks so foolish. And not just foolish, well, foolish too.
We shouldn't have been fooled, but we were, and gave him the Russian language as a gift. By we, I mean Ukraine's leadership and globalists, not myself. It was intentional to gift him the Russian language. Why destroy those monuments? They could have just ignored it.
By the way, I also wanted to say something about the Russian language. After all, that was also a stumbling block, and everyone was making noise about it. They claim people in Ukraine are oppressed, not allowed certain things, and that Russian is being erased and banned in schools. But now, in those territories that Russia has, so to speak, occupied, yes, the status of the Ukrainian language is given absolutely no importance, none at all. It's simply not there. Everything there is in Russian, even though there are Ukrainians there, for example, Ukrainian children who speak Ukrainian, yes, but no one is going to study Ukrainian there. They will only study Russian. As I understand it, in these regions that Russia currently occupies, there's also an interesting situation regarding the status. I wanted to ask Dennis about the role of Rustem Umerov. Many people have talked about this as well. How do you see his role, first of all? Well, not just in the negotiation process. Many people were watching to see whether he would return to Ukraine or not. He was also connected to this scandal. So what is the situation today with, as I understand, he's a member of the National Security Council of Ukraine, or actually, I think he's the secretary, right?
He's the head, yes.
Oh, the head.
Yes, I won't say anything bad about Rustem Umerov today. The only thing I criticized was his clothing during the peace talks here in Miami recently. If you listened to our last broadcast, I said Umerov did everything right. When that was ignored, I wouldn't mention it now if you hadn't asked. The New York Post has an article about Yermak sending a message saying, I'm going to the front. There's a paragraph there dedicated to Umerov, saying that Umerov met with Kash Patel, the head of the Federal Bureau of Investigation, during his last visit to America before meeting with everyone else. That's all. I knew this, and that's why I was so sure, and that's why Yermak was corrected. Umerov is the head. That's all.
I have a question from the chat.
Andrei Yermak, who was dismissed from the position of head of Volodymyr Zelensky's office, declined an offer in 2024 to develop contact with Donald Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner.
Does Dennis know anything about this?
Yes, that actually happened. This is one of the episodes that confirms everything we discussed earlier today. So, was it wise for Trump's son-in-law not to pursue the relationship?
No, definitely not. Why? How did he explain?
I wasn't present there. But isn't it true that this could be seen as playing into Russia's hands? And, you know, when the United States presidential elections were happening, Yermak was going around convincing everyone Kamala will win, we need to support Kamala. And Zelensky fell for it. Remember, they went with the Democrats to a military plant in Pennsylvania during the election campaign?
Yes.
Doing that means you've chosen a side. And the then president of Poland, Duda, acted differently. He basically told the Poles, of whom there are many in America, vote for Trump. I'm for Trump. And everything was fine with Poland then. But Zelensky acted like, I'd rather not say who. But I was shouting for a different course of action. I was hinting, Trump will win. What you're doing is wrong. But Yermak was advising him differently. By the way, that's information that a lot of people can give you. What Yermak told him was, we'll support Kamala. That's it.
What do you think, Dennis? Did Yermak genuinely believe that Kamala was a good choice, or was there some other reason?
I still believe that Yermak is on a special mission. Acting as an agent of Russian influence, doing everything in a way that's bad for Ukraine.
I'll ask you a rather unpleasant question, in my opinion. In every war, there's a third beneficiary. In World War I, it was Britain. In World War I, it was the United States of America. And who is it now? After all, this war is unprofitable for neither Russians nor Ukrainians. Well, sort of.
You just need to separate things. Yeah, many, especially from Russia, think Putin's interests match Russia's. I'll put it simply for you. Everyone won except Ukraine, and Ukraine lost a huge number of people who left or died. Ukraine lost territories. Ukraine's infrastructure is destroyed. Many people who are still in Ukraine want to leave or will leave. Trust in the state is gone. Our history has many dark chapters. These territorial recruitment centers and the killing of our own people are awful. But in the end, everyone won. Europe got a lot of people, decent people, educated, of the same faith, a workforce. Both sides profited from the military-industrial complex, while Ukraine lost everything once again. Yermak and others profited greatly during the war, far more than people realize. The audience can't imagine the amounts Yermak made since he oversaw everything during the war. It's directly connected to the war.
Well, yes. When you just said that you have a feeling, based on Andrei Yermak's actions, that he's not exactly a big patriot of Ukraine. Yes, well, I'm putting it mildly, but I'm curious, do you think Zelensky understood who was next to him, or is it all... Was it clear, and was there some kind of agreement?
If I say he didn't understand, it's like saying the Tsar is good, but the boyars are bad. Just a silly little boy. He didn't figure it out. They fooled him. Couldn't you check social media to see what's happening and hear other opinions? Of course you could. They created a comfortable environment and he happily settled in. If I say that he understood all of this, then how does that correlate with the scandal involving Yermak? He understood some things, some he didn't, but overall he approved. I'm convinced he was also involved in corrupt activities.
Remember how they used to say that? Comrade Stalin, a terrible mistake happened.
Yes. Now I see that from the Russian side, the meeting includes the presidential aide Yuri Ushakov and the special representative of the president for investment and economic cooperation with foreign countries, the general director Kirill Dmitriev. That's all I see. And as for the Ukrainian side, from the American side, I guess it's Kushner and Witkoff, as far as I understand.
Yes, there may be some other second-rank diplomats present, but they are the main figures. You see how Trump operates. He doesn't conduct diplomacy in the classic way with diplomats and everything according to the textbook. He goes about it completely differently. Why? Because he's a businessman. He needs efficiency. He's already seen what these serious guys with serious faces lead to. Just look at how our ambassador, this Kizlytsya, was sitting during the meeting here in Miami with Kushner and Witkoff. And with Rubio, he was already sitting like this. I analyzed it live. His hands and face showed he was boiling, like a Soviet official, clearly dissatisfied. Meanwhile, others in nice suits looked relaxed and productive.
What do you think? How long have you been in America, Denny?
3 years.
3 years. Look, you're that rare case, I've already said this, when you actually understand Ukrainian politics because you're from there and you're someone who's directly involved. And you understand, after living in America for 3 years, American society. How likely do you think it is that Trump will actually be able to put an end to this war if he manages to?
I'm 100% convinced that Trump will end this war. I'm absolutely certain.
Why?
How come? That Trump's life proves it. His actions, his effectiveness, his outlook on life, his ideology. And for him, this is a matter of principle now, because it didn't work out as easily as he expected. Everyone is waiting, so this war will end. And only thanks to Trump. Not Putin, not Zelensky, only thanks to Trump.
But what do you think, Dennis? Here we actually see as well that in recent years, a lot really depends on a specific person. There's President Donald Trump, right, who has a certain policy. There's President Vladimir Zelensky. There's President Vladimir Putin. But people leave, right? And basically the policy, let's say the direction should remain, but it changes just the same. Suppose Donald Trump leaves and someone else takes over, right? And won't the attitude of the new American president hypothetically toward this Russia-Ukraine situation change, right? Won't, let's say, again, hypothetically, a second Biden come in, or, for example, Vladimir Putin, what will happen to his policy? I mean, to Russia's policy, to the direction it's heading? How important is this now, in your opinion?
It's important, but Putin's policy will end by 29th or 30th year. This is planned to be done under President Trump's program, or more precisely, during his term. To remove dictators as much as possible. Dictator Maduro, Dictator Zelensky, Dictator Lukashenko, Dictator Putin. There will be changes. I strongly disagree that if Putin leaves, someone similar will replace him. That's not true. Russia is undergoing big changes after Putin. Some Russian elites realize the situation and know it can't continue this way.
And why did you mention the year 29th? Where do those dates come from?
There's a certain idea of Trump. Just because something isn't announced doesn't mean it's not happening. I've told people this, and so far that's what's happening.
This is the first time I've heard about such a concept. Could you tell me a bit more about it?
Well, it's obvious who's creating problems in the world. Well, Trump has this famous saying, keep your friends close and your enemies even closer. That's exactly how he interacts with Xi and Putin. But Putin has crossed all possible red lines. Everyone here understands that perfectly well. And his power will also be stripped away layer by layer. But again, that's just a prediction. We need another 4 years to know for sure if that's the case. I'm convinced that by 2029, at the latest, Putin will be gone. Not that he'll die or anything, but he won't be in power.
Yeah, I see.
He'll lose his influence.
Dennis, how do you assess Zelensky's statement that this is the most devastating war for freedom since World War I? Is this political rhetoric, or is it really an accurate description of the situation?
I find that offensive and disgusting. There's no freedom in Ukraine because of Zelensky and because of this war. Zelensky is a dictator. It's a war between a big Soviet and a little Soviet.
What risks does Ukraine face if Washington and the Kremlin, like I already asked, start negotiating without Kyiv?
That won't happen anymore. To some extent, that's already happened. Zelensky once said, not a word about Ukraine without Ukraine, but everything was arranged without Ukraine because of Zelensky. Because he showed himself to be a person who is simply incapable of making agreements at all. It's completely impossible to come to an agreement with him. The Trump administration tried 3 times since he took office this year. Nothing worked out. He found himself with many decisions made without him. Trump got so frustrated, he said, that's it, we've agreed, and I'll push for it. Of course, some things will be taken into account, but the basis remains, as you can see, just as it was agreed upon.
Suppose Putin accepts this peace agreement, yes, the one from Trump, then who will he sign it with if he keeps saying that Zelensky is illegitimate?
Zelensky can sign a framework agreement, after which major changes will occur in Ukraine's Verkhovna Rada. It will likely be signed by the speaker of the Verkhovna Rada, possibly as acting president, or just as speaker. There are many legal ways to do this. The fact that Zelensky won't be signing the final peace agreement is 100% certain. 100%. He might not even sign the framework agreement, you understand?
And how will it be interpreted if the president of Ukraine doesn't sign all the documents, Denny?
Well, who signed the deal on rare earth materials with the United States? Sviridenko signed it, and she wasn't even the prime minister at the time. You can adjust all of this. Alexandra, you or Dennis asked about the territories. I'll tell you a little insider tip, not really an insider tip. Everything could end with a referendum. There might be a referendum ahead of us. This is being seriously discussed here. If that extreme situation happens, Zelensky will shift responsibility publicly, followed by a referendum.
By the way, I forgot something. Did Israel itself sign the peace plan for Israel or not? I think there were 2 sides there as well, if I remember correctly. That was exactly the United States. And I don't remember if there was...
Yes, I understand. It's coordinated, but not directly.
Yes, that's absolutely right, yes.
This is used as the basis until this...
Many people say Trump's peace plan is modeled after Israel's peace plan.
Of course, I expected this and mentioned it on air, I think on Sheila's show. Now it's happening. You see, they even excluded Kella as a general and took Witkoff and Kushner, the ones who led those negotiations to success. That's why it works this way. Whatever works, Trump uses. If it doesn't work, goodbye.
That's
Are you going to the football game on Saturday?
To the football game?
Yes.
Who? Inter Miami?
Yes, with Vancouver Whitecaps.
I don't know. I know they're in the final. I don't know. Not yet.
The Major League Soccer final.
Yes.
It's the first time for both teams. Things are going crazy here in Vancouver.
well, Dennis, I almost said Denise's, how long has Trump been president already? It'll be a year in January, right?
The inauguration was in January, so it's been a year.
It'll be a year on January 20. Tell me, please, what has the American president done over this past year? Well, you understand that many people criticize him. They say he's crazy. In the morning, he says one thing, in the afternoon, another, and in the evening, something else. But in terms of results, he has already achieved a lot in just 1 year. So do you have the feeling that he will be able to solve this issue with Ukraine as well?
I've been a supporter of Trump long before all of this. That as an entrepreneur, not as a politician. I saw how he acts. You're right. And when all of this started, there was this idea that by 2025, we should resolve the most difficult issues and receive all the harshest criticism. In 2026, everything will be a little different. That is, in 2026, there will be more positivity if this war ends, of course. That's the final touch. Now, the head of the Federal Reserve System will most likely change in December. There are some issues that depend on that. That's it. The effectiveness is tremendous. He accomplished more in 6 months than Biden did in 4 years. Peace could have come as early as May. I repeat, that was the expectation.
Tell me, you were just talking about Israel and the hostages who returned home. And, well, it's clear that Israel, the Israel Defense Forces, Mossad, and decent people will never forgive those monsters for what they did on October 7th. And so to speak, I think the civilized world understands this, and that's why they're wary of Israel's actions. And by the way, that's the right thing to do. But anti-Semites and narrow-minded people, well, they try to somehow explain this situation. Well, when you were talking about Trump just now, it's absolutely clear that Trump did what no other president has done in such a short time. And yet people write, in the end, there is no peace in Gaza. It's just an empty promise. And Trump didn't get the Nobel Prize. Maybe he'll get it by 26 or someday. That's such a mocking question that it's clear he's a nobody. He's nothing and he's nowhere. And that's why he didn't get the Nobel Prize.
There are plenty of idiots in the world. Yes, people write things like that, and it's a complicated region and will likely flare up again. But we need to discuss what's actually happening. Some people are fatalistic or know-it-alls, and I have plenty on my streams too. Those who know everything is bad, and in advance, everything is bad everywhere. These are toxic people.
You're being asked, well, it's not really a question, it's more of a comment. Dennis, you sympathize with Israel. Well, if you say so, well, they've concluded that you sympathize with Israel. Balashov sympathized with Israel. I don't know where that came from. We talked to Hennadiy many times. But to say that he confessed his love for Israel, he said that he had a certain respect for people who have done so much and continue to do so. Whether it's Israeli scientists or something else, it means... So I'll tell you how it's written here. It's absolutely obvious that if you didn't have, well, I'll say it as it's written here. If you hadn't lived through it, well, survived, then neither you nor Balashov would be shouting so much for the Jews who arranged all this. So I just shortened it for you like that.
Gennady Viktorovich is not connected to Judaism at all. I don't know why they credit him for this. As it was done in Ukraine.
Oh, really?
I think his mother is Russian, his father is German, or the other way around. That's how it is. Well, the person is an anti-Semite, so why should we talk about them? I support Israel not just for personal reasons. Even if I were Mongolian, I'd still support Israel because it's simply right. This concept, how it was all implemented, how the country lives the right way, what it achieves, that's what I support first and foremost. And people, well, what can you do about that?
But tell me, this pro-Palestinian, well, rhetoric propaganda, despite what happened on October 7th? Is it just because someone paid for it? Or is anti-Semitism in the world so strong that no matter what Israelis or Jews do, or on the contrary, no matter what is done to them, yes, what happened is a terrible tragedy. This does not evoke sympathy from society, but rather the opposite. Or are these mostly paid people who do this for money?
Anti-Semitism remains strong, and Europe is still unsafe for Jews, sadly. European leaders are also largely to blame, but we must admit this is due to brainwashing, as seen in Ukraine and Russia. These guys are investing colossal amounts of money into social networks. We're talking about billions of dollars where all these falsehoods and this entire concept are being fueled.
Israeli politician, I'll ask one more question about Israel. Today, Israeli politician Avigdor Lieberman said in an interview with Alexei Alexeyevich Venediktov that Netanyahu should step down. And what's your opinion on the actions of the Israeli prime minister?
Basically, I support Netanyahu, but I admit that he has made some mistakes. I don't want to talk much about this because I don't live in Israel. Just like I don't like it when people talk about Ukraine and start giving us deep advice, I don't want to do that to those who live in Israel. Overall, I support Netanyahu.
But you just said that you don't want to give advice. And my radio partner Dima Shiglik has said many times that it's none of our business whether there is democracy in Russia or not to give them advice, right? Or, for example, when it comes to Ukraine, you have to understand the situation. You see, you or Hennadiy Balashov have the right to make these judgments, to understand, because you are from Ukraine. And of course, 3 years is a very short time. And at the same time, I notice how you talk about Trump and how you talk about American society. I get the impression that Ukraine is your country, of course, and you can't be indifferent to it. Danny, your emotional tone shows you care. But you also speak about the United States with quite serious knowledge. Do you like American society?
Well, of course, you see, half of my family emigrated to America a long time ago, and they've been American citizens for a long time. I've basically been an Americanized kid since my earliest childhood. And that shows in some ways. As for Russia, I've never given any advice to Russia. The point is that Russia attacked Ukraine. I absolutely don't care how they live, but of course, that's what happens when there's no democracy in a country. Then they attack their neighbors. Authoritarian regimes eventually start wars, which worries me. How they live is their concern. Turn on any of their broadcasts from the last 12 or 13 years. It's always Ukraine and the United States. Why not talk about Russia? How are things with you? There's no political process, but I've never interfered. These propaganda people are fighting, but I don't discuss Russia's internal affairs.
You know what surprised me? Just now when you were talking about Hennadiy Balashov and his parents, you said that maybe his mom is Russian and his dad is German, right? Or the other way around. And then some smart aleck writes, ha ha ha, sure, what kind of German is that? I get the impression that these people, the anti-Semites, think that being Jewish is something bad. You see, do you understand what I'm trying to say? So they say, oh, yes, he's hiding it. He's not really German or anything. I don't understand. So, I mean, for them, how rampant was this anti-Semitism in the Soviet Union? It was just crazy, insane. People have lived for over 30 years somewhere far away. But this idea is still in their heads that being Jewish is something negative, something bad, something you have to hide. Or they're just scared. Go to hell. We're so tired of you. I don't even know how to respond anymore. But you didn't live in the Soviet Union, Dennis. Am I right?
I was born in the Soviet Union in late '87, so I technically lived there, just not consciously.
Unconsciously. Good word, Dennis. In that country, you could only live that way. That's an absolutely accurate observation. Well, they're asking you to ask about the singer Larisa Dolina. I won't ask. I have no idea what's going on with her. Is she even singing at all? Or
It's about something completely different.
do you like Larisa Dolina as a singer, Dennis? Why am I even asking you?
I have no idea. I've never commented on this. I used to respect her at some point. But at the start of the war, when Putin held that stadium concert, she performed there. I think she's from Odessa. That's terrible. That's terrible.
That's a completely different story. Right now, there's just a wave of canceling Larisa Dolina in Russia. That's all. Yeah.
There was some kind of fake post, right? Supposedly that I'm moving back to Ukraine to live. Is that it?
No. The thing is, no. It's much simpler, more banal, and that's what makes it even worse. She sold her apartment for some crazy amount of money, but it really was an expensive apartment to an entrepreneur, and then to a woman entrepreneur. And then after some time, she said that some scammers had influenced her, and the money she got for that apartment, she gave to them. She went to court, and the court sided with Larisa Dolina. The court took the apartment away from this woman entrepreneur, but Dolina didn't return the money to her. So accordingly, the apartment went back to Larisa Dolina, and the money also remained with her. Not only that, she wasn't even embarrassed. Literally, after a short time, she put it up for sale again for the second time. I mean, this is, and even the Z Patriots, those hardcore radical Z Patriots, even they started to cancel her now. So now these memes about her are spreading all over the internet. This is a major story right now. Nothing will change. Now people will complain, then move on. They're planning to remove her from the New Year's television shows. It's currently trendy for businesses like tile layers to say, we lay tiles, but never for Larisa Dolina, for example. Or like, we bought tickets, yes, but we won't go to the concert. Give us our money back because we did it without realizing. So that's the kind of thing that's going on.
The main complaint about Dolina is that she's described as Kudelman, not Dolina. Well, I'm already used to it, this Kudelman. Dennis is not Yelisevich, but Goldstein, and so on and so on. Denise, please tell me, well, what are you today? In an hour or two, the results of these negotiations will probably be known. I mean, Kushner, Witkoff, and the Russian side. Well, everyone is writing now that this could end one way or another. Well, whatever we talk about, Dennis, whatever we talk about, everyone is only thinking, oh, well, not everyone. Many people are thinking, I don't like the word everyone myself. When will the Russia-Ukraine war end? The question is not only when, but also what its end will mean for Russia, for Ukraine, and for the whole world.
The world will be relieved. I don't want to discuss Russia. Victory will be declared, sparking patriotism and praise for Putin. My concern is only Ukraine. I know there's a psychological effect. Even though we all want the war to end now, then the citizens of Ukraine, especially the people who are physically there now, will go through a stage like depression, a bad state. Thinking about it, years of life were lost, and some even had their lives taken. Another tough period is coming, and even after the war, Ukraine will face many challenges and hardships.
And you said a phrase to me yesterday. You said, even if the active phase of military actions ends, it doesn't at all. Between Russia and Ukraine, it doesn't at all mean the end of the war. What does that mean?
Yes, because the war ends when a peace treaty is signed. And it's still a long way to a full-fledged peace treaty. Because it's so, how can I put it, broad in scope. Many changes are needed in Ukraine. While it's unclear if the political map will shift, significant changes are expected, possibly impacting the constitution. It's a process. It's a process, and it will take time. The most optimistic estimate for a final peace agreement is late 2026 or possibly even 2027. Currently, we're just discussing a framework agreement and a ceasefire. There's still much work ahead.
Are you planning to go back to Ukraine?
Yes, of course, I already said, of course I plan to. But for that, I need the regime to change. And a few more things need to happen inside Ukraine.
What do you think, given the current circumstances and where things are heading today, do you think Balashov would return to Ukraine?
Well, of course, that's not even up for discussion. 100%, absolutely, 100%. He'd be ready now. If not for the criminal cases, he wouldn't have left at all. And he didn't leave because of the war, and neither did I. That's completely different.
What year did you leave, Dennis?
In the fall of 2022.
2022, and Balashov left before you, right?
Yes, half a year earlier. But during his vacation, he returned from Africa to wartime Kyiv.
Oh, so he was in Ukraine during the war.
He missed the war's start, but returned a week later to Warenkiva, yes.
So you're saying that if those 7 criminal cases hadn't been opened against him, things would be different. He told me.
Yes.
He said he would have stayed in Ukraine despite the war.
Well, I'm sure, yes. Maybe for his wife, maybe because of those heavy shellings, maybe he would have left for a couple of months, but he was uncomfortable in America.
Why?
And I'll tell you, I love America, I respect it, and I have no right to complain, but probably you need to be younger to move there. In America, people from difficult backgrounds often adapt more easily and are more impressed by life there. But when you have achievements in your own country, you pay less attention to that. Family involves many factors. Moving at 20 is very different from moving at 35.
That's true.
At 50, that's a whole different story. That's what happened to Hennadiy.
But just now you said uncomfortable, right? Dennis, do you mean the lifestyle or what?
No, the lifestyle is fine. It's about socialization. So when you're an entrepreneur in Kiev, you have meetings, an office, employees, restaurants. Life is buzzing, you know, family, friends, basically everything. The way you've set up your life. But when you're in a foreign country, my English is bad and Hennadiy's English is non-existent. So it's twice as hard. Well, there are a million reasons.
I'm listening now. I've lived in Canada for over 30 years and spent 4 years in Israel before that. And, you know, even though I left the Soviet Union when I was very young, that's right, I said it. I'm young now, but I was even younger then. So I want to tell you that I didn't have my own business back then. In fact, no one really had one at that time. The word business sounded kind of capitalist, bourgeois, Western. So even I, for many years, much longer than all my acquaintances, I never had a sense of home. I just didn't have it, Dennis. I wanted to go home, whether it was the right country or not, just home. And today, of course, when I went through, I've lived here longer than I lived in the Soviet Union, and my daughter has already grown up here. I already have grandchildren. So I wonder, is this home now? I love Canada and enjoy living here. But what I meant is that the feeling remains, not because this isn't home, this is home. But there's something that can't be explained, what it is. You can't touch it. And especially when you told me, I just imagined the life of a successful, lucky person with all this hustle and bustle, all these meetings, farewells, business, restaurants, like you said, activity. I understand what you're talking about because all of this, now I'm going to say something important. I didn't find it here. I created it here. So, you see, I didn't have an Uncle Sam who would take me by the hand and say, come on, Sasha, let's go. I'll help you somehow, like our parents did in the Soviet Union. And my parents would have done that, of course, and they tried. But the Soviet Union ended. My father passed away very early. Well, this, what do you call it? This kind of group, yes, in a good sense of the word, if a person is able to create it. And you put it very accurately just now. It's one thing to leave at 20, at 30, and at 50. And you don't know the language, you don't know the mentality of these people, you don't really understand very well. You can't get this train going. And I can imagine what Hennadiy felt. That's what you were just talking about. And by the way, when you were just talking about Balashov, you used the present tense several times. You didn't use the past tense. And I've noticed more than once that you speak like that. And I understand what it's like to meet such a personality. Dennis, I'm very grateful that we met. And you know, you're the only person, the only one, I'm not trying to flatter you or anything right now, with whom we can talk about Balashov. In this case, it's me. There's no one else. It's important to have someone by your side to say, do you remember? Well, there should be a history of a relationship. You definitely have that with Balashov and now with us. And this history, it's something you can't buy. Dennis, dear, now you'll make a lot of money. I sincerely wish that for you. I sincerely wish that you return to Ukraine and that everything works out for you there too. Well, I'm sure things will work out for you, even on a deserted island. But I want it to happen sooner so that these emotions, when you tell me something and I listen to you, I see how emotional you are. Well, how emotional you are about what you're saying. And I can't not believe you, Dennis. I just can't not believe you. Just like I couldn't not believe Balashov. I'm being sincere. I didn't plan to say this, but I just...
Well, I urge the viewers not to just believe anyone. Double check everything, question everything, and listen to different points of view.
Yeah. Well, whatever you and I say, whatever we write, none of it works. Dennis, we want you as Ukraine's president. They just wrote to you now, do you actually like being involved in politics? If you return to Ukraine, would you plan to have anything to do with it? Or is it unlikely?
Unlikely. I'm not a politician by nature. I'm an entrepreneur. It's not really my thing. If there was strong demand in society, as in Argentina, it would be worth serious consideration. But to go on those Ukrainian talk shows, arguing in studios with some idiots who have their own masters and are just pushing some agenda, or with outright socialists, I'm not sure. That's a question. Of demand. But that's not for me. I mean, there are people who like this kind of thing. It's not for me.
Well, here's a question for you. Dennis, what are you going to do? Well, I'll read it as it's written, Dennis. In a broken, robbed country.
What I was doing, business and living, trying to change something, you can do that not only through an office.
Someone wrote to me that Ukrainians don't say that they are great. Don't exaggerate, Alexandra. Propaganda doesn't suit you. Basically, I just repeated what Dennis said.
Yes, I said that.
And he knows Ukrainian society much better than I do. I mean, he actually knows it, and I don't. Not better, it's just that Denis Yelisevich knows and I don't. Because I repeat, I left the country when it was the Soviet Union. And why do they say Ukrainians don't talk that way?
Will Russians mention this or admit to the spiritual bonds? They will also react aggressively. It's the same here. A person denies what is clearly visible. But that's classic behavior.
That's classic behavior. Dennis, please tell me, when these negotiations end today, will we finally know something? In a couple of hours, you'll probably post something on your channel, right? Denis Yelisevich, no?
I'll definitely post something on my Telegram channel.
I encourage everyone to subscribe to Denis Yelisevich's channel. I enjoy visiting it. I want to tell you that and ask you one more question. Look, our last interview, we posted the video, you asked about it. You got almost 200,000 views in 6 days. We got about 10,000. Why do you think that is? Is it because your Ukrainian audience is larger?
Yes, mainly a Ukrainian audience. This channel is focused on one topic, originally tailored for one person, and that's how the algorithm spread it. You have a unique format and guests from various countries and fields, which creates its own impact. Well, that's purely YouTube algorithms.
Dennis, thanks so much. We look forward to seeing you next week. I'm really interested in your comment about what's happening today. I think a lot more will happen in the coming days. And I'll say that Radio VERA is lucky Denis Yelisevich is coming to us now. And at the same time, two people come to my mind, Denis Yelisevich and Hennadiy Balashov. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Thank you. It's 9:51 in Vancouver. We're wrapping up our morning coffee today on Radio VERA at 96.1 in Vancouver, Toronto, and Calgary. Our guest today was the public figure and entrepreneur Denis Yelisevich. Well, actually, I think we've discussed just about everything possible. Everything that's on the agenda today, as they say. the relationship between Russia and Ukraine, and everything happening related to these events. And of course, we're still waiting for the results of the negotiations that are currently taking place in the Kremlin between the Russian and American sides.
Tomorrow, in the first hour of our broadcast, we'll have Ukrainian politician Mikhailo Shitelman. In the second hour, Dr. Dmytro Shehlik. Dima is going on a rather long trip, and before his journey, we'll have a chance to talk with him. Right now, I'm not sure exactly where he is, either in Europe or in the United States, but we'll be able to talk. So the first hour will be Mikhail Shetelman, and the second will be Dmitry Shcheglik. On Thursday, Mikhail Svetov, and on Friday, I won't say yet.
I'm just looking at the chat. As usual, there are a lot of different kinds of advice.
Well, yeah.
Here's one right here.
Yeah, go ahead as always. Well, it says here, Dennis Alexandra, if you want more subscribers for your channel and a YouTube button by New Year's, keep inviting such simple-minded people and so on. Do you even know what kind of channel Dennis Yelisevich has? How many subscribers he has, who you're calling simple-minded or anyone else? You know, I really regret that Dennis Manzar told you that we would like to, by New Year's. Well, listen, guys, dear ones, if you don't want to like or subscribe to the channel, that's your right. But I just can't understand, then why are you here? Actually, I want to address our audience who loves our guests, who judges them fairly. Some better, some worse, some like someone more, some less. But if, so to speak, you like the Radio VERA television channel, I suggest you give us a like. Subscribe to the channel, donate if you have the opportunity, and promote our channel as much as you can. And if by New Year we get that silver button and gain 7,000 more listeners and viewers, then that's not a gift for us, Dennis Manzar and me. It's a gift for you. Because what does that mean? It means the channel will become more popular and YouTube's algorithms will further promote Radio VERA's channel. And that's what's happening right now. Thank you so much to everyone who subscribes and to those who give likes. And it's an opportunity to have something even more interesting, something even better, and even more interesting guests. So who is this gift for, my dears?
Yes, it's a rhetorical, or maybe not rhetorical question. Well, and of course, fools, it's clear everyone around is a fool except for yourself. All of that is clear. You don't need to give any more advice. Why state the obvious? Everyone around is a complete idiot, but you're the only smart one. You know how to do everything right. And as for the buttons and everything else, if you pay attention on many... Right now, I'm just pointing it out. On many channels, every 15 minutes, people are literally begging for donations, asking, guys, please help. It's really tough right now, and so on and so on. We just ask subscribers to subscribe for all those who watch us without a subscription, and there are quite a lot of them. Just, so to speak, put a check mark there. It's not hard. There, and accordingly, it's nice for us. And Sasha, my colleague, was right when she said that we mostly do this for you, because in this way, the content will be promoted much more in this regard, and where there is more and better promotion, the more people watch us, the more guests of different quality and quantity we can invite. That's all.
And besides, we also have people today who support us a lot. And I want to thank these people for supporting the channel and for the fact that I even know a very recent story when a person I respect very much, a young woman who, so to speak, defended the popularity and appeal of Radio VERA so much that she even, so to speak, accidentally caused the breakup of one of the organizations that was created recently, where another person was stomping their feet and shouting that Radio VERA is nothing special. That's putting it mildly. Well, for those who love and watch us, start your morning with us. This is your Radio VERA Monday through Friday. From 8 to 10 in the morning every day. Believe me, every day is a live broadcast. It's not a play written once. And we write this play, this script, and this piece of life for you. Why? Well, I never get tired of repeating it. This is your Radio VERA.
Listen to Radio VERA 5 times a week from 8 to 10 in the morning on 96.1 frequency modulation.